Okay, so here I've got a cuttlefish. Now with a cuttlefish as opposed to squid, the flesh is a lot thicker than your typical squid, and cuttlefish can get really big in size, particularly when you buy them. With regards to your session of cooking at home, you may get a bigger cuttlefish than this, you may get a smaller cuttlefish, you may get 2 or 3 small cuttlefish. The same principle applies to cleaning them, but what I suggest that you do is, particularly with the cooking part of things, adjust the recipe accordingly. We'll provide you with a certain amount of ingredients, but likewise you don't really know how much flesh or yield you're going to get out of the cuttlefish until we know what we get from the supplier. So whatever you do in your lesson at home, make sure you cook all your cuttlefish, okay? So here we've got the head and the body. And the body will sit inside the head, but there's areas which are edible and areas which are not edible. Now, first thing we are going to do is we've given it a really good wash, and there's a good chance that you'll get ink all over yourself, or just be wary that at home, probably best off doing this in the sink, okay? Now we've removed the body out of the head. You'll find guts, and you also find the eyeballs and the beak in there. So we're just going to remove the part that's edible, which we're going to cut across here, and this is where you could get ink all over yourself. You see that the ink has a good chance of coming out here. Now this part we don't want to eat, that's not nice. Okay, I'm going to throw that away. This part here you can remove from either side, but there's an ink sac in here you just need to be careful of, as well as what's called a beak. So in there, if I open this up, find that as I press it, this can come out as like a plasticky, it's called a beak, but this is just basically cartilage and it's not edible, so we have to throw this part away. Okay, again, bin. Now, once you've prepared your cuttlefish, really make sure you give it a good wash. Okay, so you only want really here the tender parts of the legs. You can split them down the middle, and if they're really tough, probably discard them, but in this instance we're going to braise our cuttlefish, so this can be kept. Give it a good wash, and obviously we may need to cut this down closer to cooking time to make it bite-sized. Now this part here, we have all sorts inside. We need to just give it a rinse out because you will find lots of impurities. Now what you want to do here is not really think too much about what's inside, because in the back here there's a big shell. So this needs to come out, and as you pull that out you'll find that the flesh will become apparent. So as I pull this, you can just see the skin comes away. You may need to nick it with a knife, but you see here, just by the beak, just put your finger in there, separate this out. Pull this away from the back of the cuttlefish. This outer skin can come off. And that will start to resemble what you may have seen in most restaurants, the white cuttlefish rings. It looks like a bit of a squid ring, same principle. But this has a hard membrane here that's got to be removed, so we can just basically split that there and that will come out. And you'll recognise that from budgie cages, what birds peck away at. Now at this point just give it a bit of a wash, remove all the insides, and what we're looking for is just this outer layer here. Just remove all this. So what I'm going to do is just remove it, prep up these 2 cuttlefish, give them a really good wash. So see the skin here, just need to keep removing it. In the areas that are not so nice to eat, you can just cut this away. That part there needs to come off. Sometimes if it's really small, you can just peel it off. But I think the best bet is just to cut this away. So I'm going to prep these 2 cuttlefish up. I'm going to wash them, put put them to one side, and then I'm going to come back to this in a moment once they're prepped and show you how I want them cut. Okay, so prepped up 90% of the way the cuttlefish. All I need to do now is really sort of give this a bit of a clean in terms of get rid of any excess membranes, tidy it up. So I'm just going to remove these chewy parts on the outside. Give you a nice clean part of the cuttlefish. What we're going to do is just make sure there's nothing that shouldn't be there. We can just take that off. And this, obviously, once we've prepped all this up, we can give it one last wash, let it go nice and dry, ready for our braise. Okay, so the cuttlefish split this way. I'm just going to strip them. Okay, don't cut them too thin, otherwise they'll disintegrate. And then with our legs, this part here, the long part, just cut them down twice. And the legs, probably best bet is into two. Okay. This, give it all a good wash one last time. Dry it out, ready for us to saute and braise. Okay, chefs, our next recipe, we're doing our braised cuttlefish. So have a look here. Our ingredients, we have some minced garlic and chili, tomato paste, white wine, a brunoise of onion, roughly chopped tomato, some chorizo that's been diced in about a centimetre each, some tin chickpeas, crushed tomato, chicken or fish stock if you like, your cuttlefish strips that you did before, and then some fresh green basil to finish off. Now our first stage is get a nice wide thick bottomed pot on a medium heat, good plug of olive oil. We're going to begin by sweating down the onions, chili and garlic with minimal colour. So nice fine brunoise, nice minced garlic, making sure we don't burn it. The cuttlefish is quite a bland product. We need to make sure we give this a really good season throughout the stages. The first process, onions, garlic, chili, sweat down, no colour, okay? Okay, next stage, once you've got our onions and chili and garlic sweated down, nice and soft, we're going with our chorizo sausage. We're going to continue to cook this to render down the fat. This fat release is quite important to give nice flavour to our stew. So give that a good 5 to 10 minutes of sweating down. At this point we can go in with a good season of salt and pepper. Ready before we add our other ingredients. Okay, that's our chorizo sweated down. Next thing that goes in, we're going to go in with the actual cuttlefish. And of course, as we spoke about earlier, the amount of cuttlefish that you have in your food pack may differ. Whatever it is, adjust the recipe according as much as you can, but predominantly you can cook it all off. It doesn't really matter too much about the amount of chorizo, amount of cuttlefish. Stew that down. And once that's stewed down, we're going to add the tomato paste, a good season of salt and pepper, and then deglaze with the white wine. At this point we can turn the heat up. Just get that cuttlefish cooking before the stewing process happens. Okay, so here we've got our cuttlefish. Tomato paste has gone in. We've cooked out the tomato paste, we've seasoned it with salt and pepper. Now we just need to get rid of that sediment at the bottom of the pan. We're going to go in high heat again. And go in with our splash of white wine just to remove that sediment. And that'll give you a nice clean bottom of the pan there. So what we're going to do next is go in with our stock. Now we want the stock to cook down a little bit and reduce to intensify the flavour, but we don't want a watery stew. So this stew gets cooked out over a period of time, nice and slow, to tenderise the cuttlefish, cook out the tomato, and then reduce so it has a bit of body to the sauce. So that's going to simmer, reduce by half, and then we're going to go in with our crushed tomato. Okay, our pot has been slowly reducing the liquid out of there for the last 15 minutes. And what I'm going to do is add in my crushed tomato and my chickpeas. At this point, you just want to check the consistency. You want it to be very stew-like. You're going to simmer this for the best part of another 5 to 10 minutes until the cuttlefish is nice and tender. Then you're going to finish it with your chopped tomato. Cook that out for maybe 2 minutes, just till it's still firm but cooked. And then your green basil to finish the dish. Always, we just want a nice stew texture. We don't want it really watery. So at this point, we're going to cook this down before we add these ingredients. So you're looking at that, just let it cook slow and gentle. Best part of 10 minutes probably. Checking the seasoning before we finish with these two ingredients. Okay, what I've got here is the stew. It's nicely reduced. At this point, I'm going to add in the chopped tomato. Let that cook for a minute or two, just so they don't fall apart. I want a nice thick stew here. Okay, so let that simmer away. As that's happening, the basil, pick out the good leaves, dodgy leaves here. Not so great. You don't need to chop this. Basically, what you're going to do is just drop this in, tear it and drop it in. Put that here in a warm bowl. And serve it in a nice warm bowl. Drop the basil in. Just fold that through. And then plate your cuttlefish. So you've got a nice chunky tomato there. It's not a really watery stew. So always check your seasoning. Mine was a touch on the salty side, so I haven't added any more salt. Simple like that.